Welcome to ChromeIllusion.com. I'm Stephen Burns. The key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Selections and masks are exactly the same thing. Now, we've discussed some of our selection tools and their various uses. For example, the magic wand, the quick selection tool. We also have the lasso tools, polygonal, magnetic, and we even have, of course, our rectangular and elliptical tools. And we've discussed the use of it in several ways. Now, what if we come up against an image that basically has tonalities that are very close to one another? Now it becomes a little bit more difficult to select it utilizing some of these tools that's using a contiguous um, you know, concept or a contiguous way of selecting your pixel and tonal information in your image. So what I'm going to use is a tool called the pen tool right down here in your vector toolbox. I'm going to select it and select the pen tool. Now what the pen tool is going to create highly sophisticated shapes from which you're going to create a selection. I've just zoomed in a little bit here, and I'm going to begin to outline the lion's head coming off of the brick wall here, or the stone wall. Now the lion's head is made up of subtle little shapes here. I'm going to identify these shapes and to share with you how and why I'm going to select them. I'm basically laying points on either side of my curves and then dragging, tracing the outline of my shape. What am I talking about here? Let's lay a point down right about here on the beginning, actually our beginning point to outline the head of the lion. I have a subtle little curve right about in here. The curve begins where I lay down the point. The second point will be where the curve subsides or ends. Click and hold, and as I drag my mouse, I'm tracing the shape in front of me to create these lines. Alright, so let's do this again. There's another little subtle curve right in here. I'm going to click and pull just gently, just enough, just only enough to outline these subtle little curves. Another curve coming right across the top here. The curve subsides right about here. Click and drag, and watch how I'm dragging. And notice the handlebars are actually flowing along the shape of my object. Have a curve here. It subsides right about in here. Click and hold. Now notice I'm tracing the shape in front of me right in here, and it falls right into place. I laid the point on this side of the curve. I have another curve right in here. The point's here. Another one on the opposite side. And click and hold and drag it, and it falls right into place. Alright, have another curve right over in here. A line here. Let's place a point here. That's a little bit too strong because if you get in closer, you'll notice how the curve actually loops a little bit. So I'm going to undo that one. Command Z. Now, if that's going to loop, if it's going to be a little bit too strong, I can actually get rid of the handlebar here that's causing the curvature and start fresh. I'm going to hold down the Command and Control key so it gives me the direct selection tool, which is the white arrow by default. And I can move this around and position it the way I want it, which I think I'll take it here. And then I'll go to my handlebar and extend the handlebar again, holding the Control key down to modify my curve here. So I'm adding more. What I'm going to do is add more slack or take up more slack. And once again, remember the points are on either side of this curve. Let's come back over in here. Alright, so now here's my handlebar. Let's start fresh. Hold the Alt Option or the Alt key if you have a PC. Hit the point. You're starting fresh. Click and drag and outline my shape. The same problem is happening here. I have a subtle little curve in here. If I lay down a point on the opposite side of the curve, I'm going to get this loop because it's following the direction of my handlebar. I'm going to undo that one with a Command or Control Z. Hold the Alt key, get rid of the handlebars, and drag it right about here. I'm going to do it again. Here's my curve. One point here, subsides here. Drag it subtly, only as far as I need to outline my object. Here's another curve. The point's here. We're going to end it right about there and drag it. Basically tracing the outline in front of me. The same thing, drag, trace the outline in front of me. I'm going to do it once again. And if we come back a little bit, you can see that my handlebar is flowing in a different direction that I want my curve to flow into. So, Alt or Option, once we're in the pen tool, Alt or Option and click it, it gets rid of the point. Now I'm going to add a little bit of a curve right about there, just enough to add a point on that side of my curve. We have a subtle curve which starts here and comes way over here, and it basically going to end right about there. So click and hold, trace it, and there it is. So it falls right into place. Here's another curve here, and that's a little bit too harsh. So once again, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to get a little closer because it's hard to see because of the gray behind it. Hit the Alt or Option key, get rid of the handlebar, and there we are. We're going to trace it again. Again, hit the Alt key. I'm on the other side of the curve, right about there. Click and drag subtly. Outlines a curve, making sure my handlebar is flowing in the direction of my shape. Bring it back down just a little bit. I have a nice, long, subtle curve in here. Click and drag it. And because the handlebar is moving too far out, too strong of an effect, if I have to add another point on the opposite side of this little subtle curve here, go ahead and Alter Option, start fresh again, and let's outline this. There we are, coming all the way down. That's a little bit too close. So Control or Command, pull it further apart. Now it flows exactly where it should be. And I can adjust my curves as I'm working here. Alright, so now I have a subtle curve here. Drag it slightly, drag it slightly. Again, putting points on opposite sides of the curve and dragging it, tracing my shape. This is going in a different direction and it's too strong. Alt or Option selected. Make a subtle little bit of a curve here. Ends right about there. Outlining this. Let's kind of pull back to make sure we're going in the direction we need to go. And we are. So I'm going to come right over in here. Get rid of this point or that handlebar, and I'm going to pull it right across here to outline the lip. Don't worry about the fact that it's cutting off the water. We're just going to outline the entire shape at first. Hold the Alt and select it. There we are. The handlebar is too strong, too long. Alt or Option, a subtle curve here. Come across. We're almost done. Create another little curve right about there. Place a point here. Give it a slight little curve. Bring it across. Again, I'm just utilizing the curves. Put it on either side. Put a point on either side of your curves. Click and drag, and that will align the back end with the shape of your object. Alright, so we're almost done. Go ahead and take it to here. Bring it across to here. Outline it just right. Now, bring it all the way over and close my path. So what have I done here? Hitting Command 0. I've created an outline around the very subject that I want to apply a selection tool. If we look at our layers and channels panel here, we have also a path panel. Selected is actually showing me the work path that I created. This is one that I was playing with a little bit previously. I'll go ahead and delete that so it's not so confusing. And if I double click work path, it'll allow me to rename it as well as save it. Okay, so that means if I save this file, this path will be saved in future future ways for you to alter it and apply a selection to. Okay, so we have the path. We want to adjust the outlines again. Right below your pen tool, you have your direct selection and your path selection. The white arrow is what we're interested in. If I click back on the path, my points show up. So these are basically beads on a string or beads in a rubber band. I can come in here and I can reposition these. So if I take this one here, click on it and drag it, see it'll actually sit where I want it to stay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just inspect it around the shape to make sure it's outlined exactly right. I'm pretty confident that it's outlined correctly. Here's one that's a little bit of a problem. I'm gonna select it here, and the handlebar is actually coming out too far, so it's creating a little bit of an arc above the shape. I want it to align more with the shape, so I'm going to bring it back. So there it is. It's perfectly aligned, and I'm happy with it. Now I had a little bit of a problem right over here. Select it, as you can see, let's zoom in a little closer. I want to actually pull this out so it's a lot more accurate there. So now that's a little bit of a problem. So I'm going to pull this out, grab the handlebar, and just make some adjustments to this. In fact, I don't think we really need this extra point here. And if that's the case, go to your pen tool, click and hold, grab the minus, delete anchor point, and just get rid of that there. So go back to the direct selection tool, which is the white arrow, and utilize that to, there we go, that's a little bit better. The less points that you have, the better. And as you get very good with the pen tool, you will be able to select highly sophisticated shapes with very few points. All right, now what can we do with this one? Let's create a selection from it. The key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Selections and masks are exactly the same thing. On the below your path palette, you have to make sure that your path palette is selected. On the bottom, right almost dead center, it's actually the third icon from the left, you have basically a command here that will load path as a selection. I'm going to click it. Or you can hold the control or command key down and click directly on this icon here. It turns your path into a selection. Alright, so what does that mean? Now I have a selection in which to manipulate or apply by Photoshop's commands and tools to my object. Now what I want to do is I want to manipulate the head independently from the background. Now if we get in a little bit closer, you'll notice that the water is also being selected. Do I want to select the water? Not really. Now before I make modifications here, let's feather the edge of this selection just slightly. So select menu, I'm going to go modify and then select under modify feather and click 1 so we don't have such a hard cutout effect when we apply our tonal correction to our selected areas. Now all I want to do is go to quick mask, hit this little button right about there. We're in quick mask mode, and remember I don't want the water to be affected here, so I'm going to apply, select my paintbrush here, painting with black is going to add to my mask. I'm going to apply the mask so that I'm blocking out the water. I'm going to enlarge the brush a little bit bigger, alright, so that I can paint this out a little quicker. And if I need to zoom in closer, I will. So don't be lazy about getting in close to your subject. Alright, so there we are. I'm going to pull this on out. Command 0. That's what I'm looking for. Now only the head is selected. I'm going to go back to my standard selection mode because I'm currently in quick mask mode. So I'm going to go, I can hit the button right back down here. It's a toggle key for going between my selection as well as my marching, as well as my quick mask, or hit the Q key on the keyboard, shortcut for the quick selection, and it'll toggle between your standard selection mode and your quick mask. Alright, now we're back to here. What can we do with this? Let's apply some levels here. Command or Control L for levels. Let's move it over to the side so we can see what the effects are. And let's apply a little bit more, some highlights to my subject there. There we go. Add a little bit more detail to the lower tonal areas. We can adjust the midtones as well. So it's all up to you. So as you can see, this is all, the key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Why? Because Photoshop doesn't know what, when, where, or how it wants to manipulate anything. You as an artist need to tell it what, when, where, and how. That's what the quick mask and selections is all about. Now, the selections are in my way visually. So hit Command or Control H for hide. So now we can see the effects of the object or the effects of the levels without the selection being in our way. Alright, so I'm going to go right about there with the exposure or the adjustment of my midtones, my shadows, and my highlights, and then I'm going to switch my selection so that, let's go ahead and click OK here for now. We're going to inverse my selection so the background is selected only. All right, let's do that. Now remember, we hit it with a Command or Control H. Hit Command or Control H again, it comes back. Let's Control or Command Shift I for inverse selection, or go to your select menu and hit the inverse key. There's your shortcut there. Now, once the background is selected, how about if we hit Command H again, go back to levels, and how about if we just make the background a little darker so our main subject starts to stand out just a little bit better. All right, that's looking pretty good. And click OK. Actually, before I click OK, let's see what we can do with the highlights here. Let's bring the highlights down. Let's just make it a little bit more richer. There we go. That's it. All right. So remember, your selections are still on because we hit Command or Control H. Hit it again. There they are. So don't forget about this. If you hit hide, don't forget to hit that Command H again to unhide, or else you're going to be applying some technique into Photoshop, and you're not going to be able to figure out why nothing's happening because you have something selected and you're not working in that selected area. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off my selections, Command or Control D, and take a look at this. And as we get in a little closer, nice and clean selection. And we didn't have to put the head on a separate layer in this example, but we were able to select out the areas that we were interested in applying levels to, and only apply those tonal adjustments to those particular areas. Okay, so I hope this demonstration of the use of the pen tool and selections and quick mask all in one step can really help you accurately select localized areas in your photographic image so that you can produce a much more of an expressive image. I'm Stephen Burns. Enjoy.